So, good morning. So my name is Jacqueline. You can call me Jacqueline or Miss Barbarino. That's what my students usually call me. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself before we get started and how I know Miss DeVay. We met probably when you guys were very little in 2007. So when were you guys born?
2007.
Perfect. So we met the year you guys were born in New York City. Fast forward 7 years later, Miss DeVay is living in Kenya. And I moved to Kenya as well. And we were both out there working as teachers. Miss DeVay decided to move to Washington, D.C. And she was such a close friend of mine that here I am, I decided to move with her as well. And she's told me a lot about you guys, and she told me that you are in the middle of doing exhibition work, is that correct?
Yes.
And you just started doing research?
Yes.
So I'm also doing research. I had a baby in November. I had a little boy, his name is Grayson. And I've been combing the internet day and night looking for information on how to get him to stop crying. Because he can cry. But one side says one thing, one side says another, one side I think is just trying to sell me information, and it sort of can be a little bit overwhelming. Thumbs up or turn to your friend if you've ever felt a bit overwhelmed doing any sort of research online. Anything? Yeah, I know. So what I thought I would do today is to come in and share some tips that I've been doing to help figure out and determine if a website is credible or not. Because there's so much on the internet, and it's really hard because I know you guys are students of change and you want to promote factual information when you're doing your exhibition, and you don't want to send out any false information to people who are going to be seeing your projects. So today, just to reiterate, we're going to evaluate websites to determine how credible they are. And so I just want to make sure we understand what a credible source is. And that is one that's unbiased and backed up with evidence. Can you share with a friend, what does it mean if something is biased or unbiased? So turn and talk with a neighbor. What does unbiased or biased mean?
You let somebody's goal go in, but it's the other and talking about nobody's new life. It's not
All right, so let's just come back together. So does someone want to share what they talked to their friend about in terms of what is biased or unbiased? What does that mean? Yes?
Bias.
Can you speak up a bit?
Bias means when, like, if there are two sides and you either choose one and then just stay with that and don't like the other. And for example, in sexism, you like men and you only want to be like, you don't like women, or you like women and you don't like men. And unbiased means you either don't do anything or you treat them both equal.
Okay. Anyone else want to add to that? Yes?
I think bias means when you're looking at sites, they're being biased if they're like telling you at their point of view and why it's good. It makes you persuade that it's good, like why your point of view is good, instead of like telling you like neutral. That's it.
Right. So in a nutshell, when something is biased, someone has a motive. There's a reason why they want to convey a message to you. They have some sort of ulterior motive. But if it's unbiased, we're just presenting the facts. So you might feel one way, let's say about ice cream, but you are going to describe it to someone in an unbiased way so they can determine that on their own. So let's take a look at a website that I'm sure you often use. Wikipedia. Thumbs up if you've ever
Yeah.
found information on Wikipedia. Yeah, I use it all the time. So I want you, and when I look at this page, it looks pretty good, right? There's a search engine, you can search in different languages, and that's great for this school. But I want you to just talk to your friend and tell me if you think this would be a credible site where it's unbiased and it's backed up with good information.
You can change it.
Turn and talk. What do you guys think? It's a primary source.
It's probably in some ways. So I could. I think we need to find out they're not even thinking about what it's probably something.
What over here? What do you guys think?
I think it's I think this was
Exactly. You can just literally say
oh yeah, is there some languages are not? I deleted the bottom of cybersecurity. Yeah, I deleted the bottom.
You should
Yeah, in the top right corner.
I don't think that's true because it wasn't backed up.
Yeah, it could only. I've never seen like
on there and
because my brother's friend changed. I don't know. I've never seen like. That's because.
All right. So let's come back. So I've heard from this side that they think that it's not a credible source, but I heard some people over here talking about that it is a credible source. But right, Wikipedia is actually not a credible source, although most of the time it's a reliable source.
Yes.
So most of the time you can get some information, but you can go, like someone was saying, what's your name? Luca was saying you can actually go on the website and edit it. So I tried it out yesterday. So I was thinking back to something I loved and I wanted to look up, which is a theme park called Great Adventure. Did you ever know that place?
Yeah.
Well, look it up next time, but not on Wikipedia. So I typed in Great Adventure, and I went to the page and it tells me it's an amusement park located in New Jersey. But one thing that caught my eye was this button here that said edit.
Yes.
So when I clicked on that, it says start editing. So now, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert. I don't really know much about Great Adventure, but if I wanted to, I could go in there and write all this false information. And then suddenly, someone could go onto the website and gather that false information and start spreading lies out to people. So we just realizing maybe I shouldn't be using Wikipedia as much as I thought I should. But like I said, most of the time, there are credible sources, but these sources are getting the information from a primary source. So I would say this is more of a secondary source website. But I want to show you one thing we can do when we are going online and we needing to determine whether or not this is a good site. Because it's really hard to tell when you just go to a website, right? Because today web programmers really make sites look very fancy and great. So I put together just this quick checklist, not that one. Let's see. Okay, so 3 things we just want to look at to determine if something is credible. So first we want to look at the author's credentials. What does that mean, credentials? So it says when we look at the author's credentials, we want to see how qualified that author is to write it, right? Now, I was teaching drama in Kenya, so yeah, I would probably be a good person to write an article about drama, but I wouldn't be a good person to write something about biology. So if you're qualified and you mention your credentials on a website, you're probably off to a good start. You want to look at the organization or the institution they went to see, did they go to college for this topic? And then you want to also decide if it's credible based on that. If you think it is, then let's go to the next thing, is the article, the date of the article. So if the article was published in 2015, do you think that's the most current information?
No.
Probably not, right? Because maybe at the time it was a credible source, but it's 2019. Information changes over time. And then finally, we want to look at the type of website. So we know every website ends in .edu or .gov, a .com, .org, .net. So we really want to pay attention to that, because if it ends in .edu or .gov, that's a government or educational website. So you can probably determine that it is a credible source, right? So let's take a look at a search that I decided to do, because I heard that some of you were doing anti-Semitism. Okay, great. So I put together a flow chart to help us determine the credibility, right? Because sometimes we're not going to have this, but if we go through some questions in our head, we can decide this is a good site, let's keep on going with it. If it's not a great site, let's go back to the search engine. So let me pull that up. All right. So how to evaluate a website and determine its factual accuracy. The first thing we want to do is open the site, right? And one thing you can do, just as a tip, is open it in a new tab. So if it's not a credible site, you can just go back to the old tab and find a different website to go to. You want to do a quick skim, because whether or not it's credible, you want to make sure you can understand the text and you know what you're reading, right? So then we want to begin. Does it answer my question or have other relevant information that pertains to my research? So now I typed in anti-Semitism. The first thing that popped up was the Wikipedia page. And I know now, maybe I shouldn't use Wikipedia as one of my sources. So let me scroll down a bit. And here I see another page. It says www.britannica.com, topic anti-Semitism. That seems good enough. So let's click on it. So here we have some information, and I see a definition of anti-Semitism. So no matter what, I know that if I'm doing research, I need to know the meaning of that, so I can say, you know what, this is going to be a good site, but let me see if it's a credible source or not. 1 second. So then we quickly went back to that flow chart. We know that it pertains to my research. Is this a credible or author or site? So as we go back to that website, so we see it says written by Michael Berenbaum. So what I'll do is, or what you can do, one moment, let me finish, is let's click Michael's name. Right, let's see if he's not a hacker or something. And lo and behold, I was so impressed when I saw this. He is a contributor to this Encyclopedia Britannica website. He has websites called the Jewish Journal, so he's already sounding like an expert to me. He's a graduate of Queens College, Florida State University. He went to the Hebrew University. This seems like a pretty credible author. But I want to make sure that it's current information. So I noticed a lot of you, and is the site credible? We saw that it ended in a .com, and it said the encyclopedia website, so it seemed pretty credible. So let me scroll down to yes. Is the information current enough? And did you guys notice anything about the date?
It said February 2019.
So they're updating this website on a monthly basis, it seems like. So if we went back. Yep, they just updated it February 20th, 2019.
They're really up to date.
So they're really up to date. So then I said, you know what, this site is probably going to be a really good site for me to use for my research. So Luca, maybe you want to hit this one up when you go back to your seat. So finally, if it's current enough, let's scroll down again. And then you might want to then do another reread, and if you're up to gathering information, you might just want to start highlighting any pertinent information that might be answering the questions that you're seeking out for your research. And if it's not, try a different website, or maybe you won't need to alter your search results for something different, okay? So when you guys go back to your seats, I know you've already started doing your research, but I want you to either go back to some of the websites that you've already visited and take a look and ask yourself, is this a credible website? How am I gonna do that? Well, I have here just a little cheat sheet so you can go through that flow chart, either by yourself or if you have a partner from your group in here to do that. So you can take one of these, and if it's not a credible site, just don't even think twice, keep it moving, because I know you guys are on a very tight deadline. And if you want to read up a little bit more on what makes it credible, the credentials, the type of article, and the type of website, you're welcome to take one of these too, okay? So if you guys can quickly go back to your seats and get started. And if you'd like to take one, you can take it right here.
Can you get one for me? Both of them, please. Before we do biographies, can we check the
So you're doing anti-Semitism?
cybersecurity?
Cybersecurity, so this is perfect, because you need to have really up-to-date and actual unbiased information. So you're doing, anyone else in your group? Okay, so what are some questions that you're seeking out?
Yes, I found something.
That's a huge topic, so how do you narrow that down?
So we have user lines of inquiry to narrow it down to like the salary difference and also the questions. So we didn't do the whole topic, but we have like the salary difference and if there's the same amount of sports for each gender. And for races, we also did the salary difference. And
So I think I read
it's very
recently
short.
about football players or soccer players, female soccer players make much less money than men, and even in basketball. So what is what you read that you're researching?